We are watching the party of Reagan increasingly submit to the blogger in Florida. You've got the insurrection cover-ups we've been discussing. You have this crackdown on the right to vote. And you have this.
They looked at the dismal ratings of this year's Oscars and they said, you know what? We really don't want to ride that train.
I am talking about Chrissy Teigen's pointed harassment.
Maybe Seth doesn't have to worry for a few reasons. You know, he is completely inoffensive lately. He's never said a shocking thing in his life.
Conservatives searching for an issue, any issue. And just last year, for the first time since the founding of the Republican Party, the RNC did something unusual. They didn't offer a party platform on policy. That is to say, they didn't even write out the ideas they currently stood for at the time, let alone any new ones. It was the most direct admission that it was all about one person, Donald Trump, then the president. Now you have the phase we're in, where everyone's trying to understand, are the people in this party moving forward in any way, or is that idea-free zone going to stay the norm of a party obsessed with a person unless and until the blogger allows something else? You have the blocking of the investigation into the riot. You have the crackdown on voting. You have stalling any talks about jobs and infrastructure. Meanwhile, President Biden does seem to be appealing to moderate Republicans. He has these economic plans. He has the spending increases. He's pushing some things that people think make sense during the recession we've lived through, including some more taxes on corporations and the wealthy. There's also a climate agenda. There's also policing, which is an area of rich debate, but one where Joe Biden says he desperately wants to find a bipartisan solution so that Congress can do something. The theme, when you take it all together, that we're about to get into with one of our favorite experts is, have Republicans literally become, at least for right now, a post-policy party? And that brings us to our deep dive political conversations. You know what it is. You might even know what it's called. It's a special day on the beat. It's Che Day, where this cartoon you see on your screen comes to life. Political strategist Che Komanduri, a veteran of 3 presidential campaigns, and a little bit of a history wonk, if we're being honest. Good to have you back, sir.
Thanks. It's good to be back. All right.
This is an idea you've been kicking around, and in credit to many, as soon as they dropped any pretense of a platform, other people have talked about it. But you say that it's really relevant here in just these few weeks we've been living through when you look at priorities. So let me ask the question like this, Che. Do you mean it literally when you critique Republicans as post-policy now?
They're clearly a post-policy party. And I think the real story here is how the GOP's abandonment of policy has been a precursor to its abandonment of democracy. The two have become somehow very much linked. Obviously, we talked about the 2020 platform where the GOP just simply said, we'll believe whatever Trump wants us to believe. It was seen as a very minor story at the time. Now I think it can be viewed as a very major story. That was really a red warning light. We really didn't know what Trump was going to end up asking them to believe. But boy, they certainly have shown that they will believe it. And they have done this for really 3 reasons. The first is, we've talked about it before, a political calculation. It's only 5 gerrymandered House seats that they need to win in 2020. They can do that by cranking out their base. The second is it's quite fun to actually abandon policy. You don't have to spend long nights at the library, no poring over economic graphs, no math at all, really. So it's actually quite rewarding for them to abandon this whole pretense of policy entirely. And the third, and I think it's really something that we should think about very deeply, the GOP has abandoned policy because they know that they have lost on policy. They know they have lost the policy debate. I think we underestimate the impact of the gay marriage decision and the acceptance of gay marriage on the GOP. Now they see a whole younger generation that does not agree with them on income inequality, on climate change, and on racial justice. And they know that they have lost the policy argument. So when you've lost the policy argument, what do? You try to own the libs on Twitter because you can't beat their policy papers. That's simply what the GOP now has become. That's the direction they have simply chosen to follow.
Yeah, and you mentioned the platform history, which is instructive. We dug this up here for the convo. June 10th, Republican National Committee announced for the first time since its founding before the Civil War, the party would not draft a new platform. They said they were just carrying over 2016. And it was discussed at the time by the, again, Republican-friendly Wall Street Journal as a symbolization of Trump's takeover of the party. It was also, to your point, Che, a time where you have power. So a president with power can put just about anything in the platform. And
Right.
yet the complete lack of interest in doing so tells us what?
Well, it tells us that Trumpism is basically to avoid any kind of really intelligent policy positions, but try to win on cultural, tribal, battleground terms. I mean, if you think about it, Trump's policies were always nonsense. You know, whether it was having Mexico build the wall, having universal health care that was going to be more comprehensive and cheaper somehow than the ACA. There was not a single page of policy details to support any of his claims on policy. But it didn't matter to 90% of Republicans, and he still won anyway, which is why the GOP simply has decided to follow this path. They know that they can still win by simply appealing to culture and tribalism.